Turkey is burying its dead.
Whole families died in this collapse. Generations wiped out. I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
Anyone could say, I'll do that, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
Sky News, get the full story first.
This is Sky News. In just a moment, the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. But first, our top stories. The United Nations says children are dying of hunger in Gaza, with 1 child in every 5 malnourished. Ghislaine Maxwell, the convicted former girlfriend of paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, has met senior figures from the Department of Justice. The wrestling star Hulk Hogan has died at the age of 71. He suffered a cardiac arrest. You are watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. It's time to see what's making the headlines with the Deputy Editor of Conservative Home, Henry Hill, and Belfast Telegraph columnist Alison Morris. They'll be with us from now until just before midnight. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. The UN statement that children are dying of starvation in Gaza, despite Israel's denials of famine, leads The Guardian, with the head of the organisation pleading for aid supplies to be let in. Meanwhile, the international pressure in Israel grows, with, according to the Eye, the UK now ready to recognise a Palestinian state as part of a peace deal. And Labour's Emily Thornberry tells the Mirror that the UK must do more to help Gaza. The 5 days of doctor strike starting tomorrow leads the Express with a warning from the NHS that the action is a threat to lives. The Health Secretary tells the Daily Mail, meanwhile, that he won't cave in to what he calls militant doctors. Those sentiments are also echoed by the Prime Minister in The Times. The Sun leads with claims that asylum seekers are targeting top London stores for shoplifting, amongst them Liberties. The Telegraph says that UK farms are closing down at a record rate after the Chancellor's controversial changes to inheritance tax on farming families. The Financial Times reports that shares in Tesla have tumbled after owner Elon Musk warned that Donald Trump's anti-electric vehicle policies would hit the company's profits. With the England Lionesses in another Euros final on Sunday, the Metro goes full on with pictures of the players and coach and an impassioned plea on behalf of the country. Good luck, let's go. While the Star pays tribute to US wrestling star Hulk Hogan after his death was announced tonight. The headline, Incredible Hulk. So welcome to Henry Hill and Alison Morris. Good to see you both this evening. Let's start with the front page of The Guardian. Let aid in, pleads UN chief, as even his staff faint from hunger in Gaza. And this is the report that UN officials are themselves starving, not less to the actual residents in Gaza. We've seen, obviously, you've seen our special report this evening, some shocking, terribly shocking scenes of malnourished children in Gaza.
And those images, I think, should shame every world leader who has cozied up to Netanyahu over the past year, while they have watched slowly as the people of Gaza, their hospitals are bombed, their schools are bombed. We know that there have been tens of thousands of children and women who have been killed during this bombardment, and now, as if that isn't enough, they're just being, the people who've managed to actually survive that are being starved to death, and those images are horrific. And not just the children who look so malnourished, they look haunted, they look like they haven't slept, they look terrified. I read a report during the week where one doctor said a child had said she just wanted to die because she heard there was food in heaven. And this is the kind of images that are coming out of here. And I think that Keir Starmer saying tonight that they're ready to make moves on Israel is too little too late. He should have done it a long time ago. They should have stopped trading component parts of weapons and fighters that are being used to bomb civilians, and they should have put strict sanctions on Israel a long time ago to put an end to this. They're deliberately withholding aid. This isn't a famine. A famine's a naturally occurring disaster. This is a deliberate starvation of a population of people, and I don't know how anyone can look at those images and not be completely horrified.
Yeah, one of the doctors in our special report, John Sparks's report, was saying that this is a man-made crisis. It's a man-made famine.
Yeah, essentially it's a siege. And Israel is not party to the particular international law that governs sieges, but that's obviously where you lock in an area of population and try and get it to surrender through lack of resources. The human consequences of this are horrific and have been horrific from the start. We've been doing this show ever since this crisis started, and every single time Gaza has come up, it's a very densely populated area with an awful lot of civilian infrastructure. There is no way to fight what is effectively a war in there without having all terrible consequences. The problem is the problem, again, that it has always been, which is that just today, I think the United States said that Hamas is apparently not interested in a ceasefire. Israel's position is that it doesn't want to withdraw from Gaza in a way that leaves Hamas in control of Gaza, and it worries that the international aid going in would effectively be governed and distributed by Hamas. Now, if that is Israel's position, the logical and moral thing for them to do would be to assume responsibility for distributing all that aid themselves, because if they're saying we're not going to allow Gaza to have its own government, they are assuming responsibility for the government of Gaza, and they should be distributing the aid, but currently they're not. And so we're in this weird,
and
I think, unacceptable limbo.
Being allowed to
yeah, exactly. And so we're in this weird limbo position where all of the aid is there in trucks. I think this says somewhere here they have 6,000 loaded trucks ready to go in Jordan and Egypt, and they're not being let in.
The Eye also looking at that story, but perhaps the movement that you're saying we need, Alison, is coming now, because we know that France, certainly, Macron is saying that he will recognise a Palestinian state by September, and according to the Eye, the UK is ready to do the same.
Yeah, and I think that's because they're finally listening to public pressure, and the fact that people, their own voters are absolutely horrified and disgusted at this. I know that Henry said that Americans said Hamas weren't interested in negotiating. They said they were in bad faith. Were the Americans negotiating in good faith? I doubt that very much, given Trump's relationship with Netanyahu. This front page of the Eye, I think, is very interesting in terms of what it's saying is about to happen and what Keir Starmer is ready to do. But I was really struck by the Patrick Cockburn line from his column in the Eye, which says, "Mass starvation in Gaza is the great horror of our age," and it really is. The fact is that we're watching this almost being live streamed. You're watching people dying in front of your eyes. It's horrific to watch, and the fact is that international journalists are also being denied access to Gaza so that this can be independently verified, rather than, if they're claiming that a lot of this, that Hamas are putting out propaganda, will let international journalists in, let people document what's happening. They won't, because they know full well that this is a problem, that Israel are involved in an attempt of genocide of an entire population. They want to clear Gaza, and that has become more and more obvious as this has went on.
Henry, do you think we are seeing or about to see a turn in the response from the international community? We've had Keir Starmer saying tonight that the situation in Gaza is unspeakable and indefensible, perhaps the strongest statement that he's made so far.
Well, in terms of the international community, Israel's critical ally is America. If it retains America, then it can probably withstand an awful lot of European disgruntlement. Also, sotto voce, a lot of the Arab states around it. One of the significant things about this is that, Egypt doesn't let Palestinians in, for example. So there's this sort of quiet arrangement where some of these states, however formally anti-Israel they are quietly sort of on side to a certain extent. I think that the challenge is, one, with regards to this British statement, I think we've always been prepared to recognise a Palestinian state as part of a peace deal, and that seems to be what Starmer has said. But two, if we do recognise a Palestinian state, the West Bank and Gaza are run by completely different groups of people, each of whom I think basically murdered each other's supporters when they consolidated power in each section. So the West Bank is run by Fatah and the Gaza is run by Hamas. So presumably, if we're recognising a Palestinian state, we'll be recognising the Fatah government in the West Bank. And what implications does that have for Gaza? I don't entirely know, because Britain won't recognise, I assume, Hamas to be the legitimate government of Gaza. So it's not obvious what avenues this unlocks.
Or whether we are any closer to a ceasefire, because
exactly.
Israel is saying that, they want Hamas completely annihilated and to lay down their weapons. So it's...
Well, this is, and I think this comes back to the problem we were discussing before, which is that Israel has been simultaneously insistent on completely eradicating Hamas as a war aim, and at the same time not assuming responsibility for the administration of Gaza. And it can't have it both ways. It makes sense. There are two logical things. One is Israel does not want to go back to having a direct occupation of Gaza. Perfectly sensible strategic objective. But in which case, Gaza has to have its own government, and they don't really get to pick who that government is. But if they're not going to allow it its own government, they need to start assuming responsibility for running it and running it properly.
Meanwhile, people are starving as well as being killed. Let's turn to domestic politics. Front page of the Daily Express. The doctors' strike, resident doctors' strike, to begin tomorrow. Alison.
Yeah, I mean, the issue is, I suppose, that there is no backing down on either side, and we already have, I mean, I'm not sure what the waiting lists are like in Northern Ireland. Obviously, we have a devolved health service, but our waiting lists are, I think, the worst in any part of these islands. But this is obviously only going to cause further delays and further delays, I suppose, to those people who need treatment most. The issue is the doctors are saying that they are working off what is 2008 wages, that the pay rise that they received last year wasn't enough to even bring them up any close to that. The government's obviously trying to play hardball, but the consequence of this is that many of those doctors just go and work in the private sector where they can name their price in terms of what they're going to be paid, and then that leaves the National Health Service with a real drain in terms of talent and people who have the experience to be able to carry out those more intricate operations. So there's a line to be tread here, and also I think that the doctors also need to make sure that they keep the public on side with any strike action. You have to have the backing, I suppose, of the people who you serve.
It does seem as if the public isn't really on their side this time round. They're not backing them. And Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, has been quite bellicose in his language, hasn't he? We see across the papers nonsense claims from striking doctors. The offers were rejected in a rush. Doctors must feel the pain of strikes or they will spread.
Yeah, so what the feel the pain remark is that in previous strikes, essentially what's happened is there's been a strike, there's been a big backlog of procedures, and then the doctors who were on strike have been paid quite lucrative overtime rates to go and clear the backlog, which creates a quite obvious perverse incentive. The obvious question for this Health Secretary is, OK, but if you're not going to do that, how are you going to clear the backlog? Like, it is more important that patients are treated, surely. The ultimate problem for the government, and it was exactly the same problem that the Conservative government had on the same issue, is that they don't have a win condition on these strikes. There's no... The problem here is structural. The government is completely correct that the NHS budget is very stretched. It is already eating government alive, and wage pressures reduce the amount that you have for capital spending in new investment. On the other hand, unlike the miners' strike or the print strike with Rupert Murdoch, there's nothing here that's going to change or reduce the BMA's leverage. So no volume of bellicosity is going to change the fact that the BMA can bring the NHS to a halt. So what purpose does it serve?
I do think, though, I mean, people assume that all doctors are paid like a surgeon's wage, and they're not. We know junior doctors are quite poorly paid, and also, especially if they come from quite, I'm saying if they come from quite working class communities, saying they don't have means, they're left with a hell of a lot of student debt, and I think the government could maybe look at trying to do something to eradicate that and make it easier for people to enter into the health service to replenish those doctors. And
we must leave it there and go to a break, but just leave with the words of Wes Streeting: I won't cave in to militant doctors. Let's take a break. Coming up, we'll be discussing this on the front of the Telegraph. Its headline: Farms close at record rate after inheritance tax raid. Stay with us for much more.
We've come to one of Moscow's Cold War bunkers. It was built as a top-secret command centre.
Being here really feels like you're stepping back in time. I'm Ivor Bennett, Sky's Moscow correspondent.
A show of military might and menace.
Courage, bravery and sacrifice will win the day.
It's a new subject. They'll learn about combat drones and some how to handle a Kalashnikov.
The Kremlin continues to put forward its own version of events, both present and past.
There's no mention of the fact that Russia invaded its neighbour. That's rewriting history, isn't it?
Now we have to read it carefully.
Vladimir Putin put forward his plan for a ceasefire in Ukraine, telling Kiev, pull out of your eastern territories and the war will end. Why should the West trust you?
Frankly, I don't care whether the West trusts us or not.
Vladimir Putin is already the Kremlin's longest-serving leader since Stalin. The question is, what will a fifth Putin term mean for Russia and the world?
Why do you support Vladimir Putin, Mr. Segal?
I can't answer questions that stupid.
I've watched Vladimir Putin attempt to create a new world order.
The St. Petersburg Economic Forum was the backdrop to Vladimir Putin's latest verbal volley that Russia could send missiles to other nations to target the West.
Ambassador, I wonder, shall we have a quick word for Sky News?
Is the West right? Are you fueling Russia's war machine?
Swedish media, oh my God, you're not afraid of being here.
American journalist Evan Gershkovich is on trial here, but was first on display.
Russia says Evan Gershkovich was caught red-handed, but has never produced any evidence to back that up. Sky News. Get the full story first.
What might happen if Russia attacked the UK?
This is clearly an enormous show of force. It is definitely out of the ordinary.
We ran a war game with former ministers back in the hot seat.
Ben Wallace.
Amber Rudd.
Jack Straw.
It's the kind of war game that's genuinely tested inside government.
The Russians are signalling that there may be an attack.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? I'm Deborah Haynes. From Sky News and Tortoise, this is The War Game. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin. The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks. If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach. This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland. We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club. 4 more years! Free wherever you get your news. I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, DC.
Welcome back. Henry and Alison still with me. We are going to take a look at The Guardian and the latest political party on the block. It hasn't actually officially got a name, but it is your party.
Apparently. So this was, so the website I think is yourparty.uk or whatever, and so everybody reported it as it's called Your Party. And then Zora Sultana, the former Labour MP, who's one of the people who has set it up, was on Twitter being like, no, it's not called Your Party. So we don't know what it's called. But essentially, this is Britain's new left-wing party. It's been established, or is being established, by Jeremy Corbyn, Zora Sultana, who resigned, who quit Labour a little while ago, and then 4 other MPs, probably most of the independents. And it's going to be challenging Labour. We don't yet know very much about it. We don't know what its programme is going to be. It hasn't really announced anything yet, apart from it's trying to do an initial call for supporters. But it's, the Conservatives have Reform UK to their right, always a destabilising influence. We've seen that with UKIP in the past. Now, potentially, we have this party to Labour's left. And it's worth bearing in mind that depending on how they can consolidate the various far-left groups together, there are several other seats where, at the 2024 general election, a hard-left candidate came very, very close to winning, including Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, who we were just talking about. I think his majority is about 500 or something.
Alison, do you think this new party is an actual threat to Labour, or is it opening the door slightly for reform?
I think that what Labour have done by moving more and more to the centre is they've left a lot of people politically homeless, and this is an attempt to try and say, if you are to the left, this is going to be a party that is going to give you a new home. I actually interviewed Zara Sultana at an event in Derry a few weeks ago, and she's a very, very impressive public speaker, a very bright and intelligent young woman. And I think that, alongside Jeremy Corbyn, who we know is revered, especially among younger voters who, on the left, who are very fond of Corbyn, that could cause major problems. And even if they don't manage to take seats off Labour, what they will do is split the vote and maybe lose Labour seats anyway that way. So yeah, they're definitely a threat, and I think that they should be worried. You think you have a council election next year, which would maybe be the first time that we'll see what the genuine support is, because people can say, you know, we're getting tens of thousands of people online applying, but we really don't know. The ultimate test of that is the only test really is an election, and that's when we'll know what the genuine support is.
Henry, we've only got about 30 seconds. Just take us to the Telegraph and the story of farms closing.
Essentially, 6,000 and something forestry, farming and fishery businesses closed in the most recent quarter. I think it's the highest since the record started in 2017. Only 3,000 and something open, so that's a loss of 3,000 or so. Most of those are in the 6 months after the Chancellor announced her inheritance tax hike on family farms.
So that's been put as the course. Well done,
Yeah.
and to time.
Yeah.
Henry and Alison, thank you so much for taking us through the papers. Much more coming up at 11.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
Live here from Washington.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place. And all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin. The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks. If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach. This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.